The Buccaneers are moving on from their offensive coordinator with Josh Grisard, but what does that mean? We've got 5 realistic new offensive coordinators for the Buccaneers that they could be looking into, but we are going to do a deep dive into Josh Grisard. Not only Josh Grisard, but they made some other staff changes as well. We've got a lot to discuss this morning. Also, too, a big-time retirement on this Buccaneers coaching staff as well. So a busy episode for us on this Thursday afternoon. With me is Caleb Skinner, our writer at BucsGameday.com, and River Wells, our editor at BG. Gentlemen, good afternoon. This is something that we expected to happen with the Bucs retaining Todd Bowles yesterday, now making the move today to move on from Josh Grisard. What's your instant reaction? I'll lead it over to you, Caleb, on this one first, of what now happens. I mean, of course, Josh Grisard, the season did not go as well as you wanted it to go. First time calling plays too, definitely not easy at the NFL level. Things started off hot, but you did see the collapse in the latter half of the season with the offense.
You could see this one coming. Not even with the Todd Bowles news, one way or another. Didn't depend on, whether they were going to keep Todd Bowles or, him go and fire him, send him into retirement, whatever it may be, that Josh Grisard was most likely not going to be here. Writing was on the wall. Offense did not look good all season besides the first drive of every single game, and then everything was sludging through the mud at that point. So you were hopeful that he was going to kind of take, some of those things from the Shan tree from his time during Miami with Mike McDaniel, who we'll talk about here in a bit as well. And then, from the Sean McVay tree, learning under Cohen there too. So you were hoping after Leo in 2024 that was going to be the case. And, heading into the season, that is not how it turned out. So we wish him the best of luck. I'm not sure where his career is going to lead, from here. He's still young. Still, we can provide a lot. He took a lot of learning things, as Todd Bowles had mentioned himself, that he'll be able to take with him to his next stop. But just not the right fit here. And but there's definitely a disconnect. I know injuries played a large part in that. Obviously, not having your 2 starting guards hurt throughout the season. Gilport was missing time. Chris Godwin early in the season. Mike Evans with that broken collarbone and trying to get a rookie wide receiver up to speed. That's a lot that's handed to him, but he wasn't able to do what he was brought in to be what he was elevated to do as the offensive coordinator for the Bucs. So a move that was expected and a move that has now happened along with a few others, and there's still more down the pipeline for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
That about sums it up. I think he did have a bad draw. He had a bad draw. He had a lot of injuries coming into his first year in Tampa Bay. First-time play caller as well with that in mind. So he had a limited amount that he could work with throughout the year, and that's going to hurt a lot of offensive coordinators, especially given the interior line not playing up to snuff, like you mentioned. And also, we'll talk about this further down the line in this episode, Baker Mayfield dropping off severely towards the back half of the year didn't help him out much either. But there's an argument that he had something to do with that, yada, yada. His play calling left a lot to be desired sometimes, had a lot of tells, and wasn't as creative perhaps as Liam Cohen was. And that's the thing. When Liam Cohen was able to do so much good work when he was down players, you're going to get compared to that guy the year after, right? So tough draw at that point, but it is what it is. Wish him the best of luck, like Caleb mentioned. Probably I wouldn't be surprised to see him go back to Jacksonville under Liam Cohen's tutelage in some sort of assistant role. But we'll see what happens next for him. He could end up getting another chance in the future with how young he is and his ability to bounce back. But for now, I agree it was a needed change in Tampa Bay.
And there's a reason why the Bucs did this. They did not want to change things up for Baker Mayfield. They were not a fan of wanting to change and have a full-on new offensive coordinator, a whole new offense come in, and they wanted to keep things internal and elevate Grisard. Now, like you guys had mentioned, the injuries certainly did not help whatsoever, but as guys started to come back and you're getting some of your key pieces back, Bucky Irving, Mike Evans coming back from an injury, Jalen McMillan, who ended off a really strong season in 2024, things just started to regress heavily on the offensive side of the ball, too. Your running game completely collapsed out of a whole 180 you were able to achieve with Liam Cohen. I mean, he did a fantastic job turning that run game around because it was awful with Dave Canales as well. Like, that was something that pointed out to be pretty bad with Grisard. in this offense. And you saw, Bucky Irving, he was irritated on the sideline down in Miami, and he was going after some offensive linemen and Tristan Wirfs. He wasn't in the game, but he was actually blocking for Bucky Irving, blocking him away from getting into the face of some of his offensive line. There was some irritation there, injuries, and on the interior offensive line certainly didn't help at all. Like you guys have probably, you guys could probably discuss more on it, but this offensive line, those injury woes sure did not help Grisard of any, and certainly there on the interior. And two, Tristan Wirfs was injured. Also, too, Luke Gedeke had his moments this year as well. I don't think he was fully healthy. Like this offensive line was certainly banged up, didn't help much at all.
Yeah, it's what it is, really. I mean, yeah, Luke was hurt early in the season and probably wasn't fully healthy as the season unwound. And then there was multiple games, and there's one specific, I forget which game it was, where he had like three penalties on him alone. So it was ugly. The execution there, the running game, Bucky was trying to do what he does usually, and it was not happening. Whether that's blocking, whether that's scheme, you can argue for both. But when you have less than a 4-yard per carry average in pretty much every single game, you're really not doing much. To the Dave Canales days, it's kind of beating a dead horse. You weren't even getting 4 yards per carry with Dave, but somehow, some way, they were able to get work with Baker. And that's the thing too. Baker was just beat up all year, whether it was his left shoulder, his right shoulder, his knee, his calf, whatever it may be. Baker, he was still going out there and playing. So Baker was trying to do what he could, but you could tell he wasn't comfortable there behind the offensive line either, getting those jittery feet, not comfortable with play calling and what was going on, being off page with his wide receivers at times as well. So things just didn't mesh all the way around. It's not just one area that caused this. It's not just strictly on Josh Grisard either, but it encapsulates the whole entire, parts of the offense ultimately. And that's what led to his, kind of dismissal at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then two, just going off of that, the changes happening in Tampa, they're also moving on from Thad Lewis, quarterback's coach. And when we're talking about Baker Mayfield and the regression there, you could tell, to me, Baker felt just out of it. I would say certainly after the Falcons game, like that game, just felt like they couldn't do much anything more. I mean, they had Mike Evans doing a lot of things for him, making big time plays as he usually does, but he just came back from a really freak accident injury, and you relied on him for the most part. Of course, the defense did not help you at all to end off that game, but still the offense, there was things that I felt like you just hit your ceiling with, and that was with Baker Mayfield. The regression, you just didn't have much to work with, and that's certainly something that has to improve going into next year. But they are moving on from Thad Lewis River.
Yes, they are. Thad was there before Dave Canales and everyone came in. I believe that was a Bruce Arians regime hire, and he's been there the whole time. He's helped Baker Mayfield out, really helped develop him into the quarterback that he's become. But time to make a change, especially given that drop off that we saw at the back end of this year. Mayfield played very bad football. However much of that was the offensive line's fault or the coach's fault or just his own fault is a huge point of discussion amongst the fandom in Tampa Bay. But those type of changes are what you need to do to prove to ownership like the Glazers that you're going to have to do a lot to stay on, do things differently to stay on. And Todd Bowles wants to stay on. If he wants to stay on, he's going to have to do things differently. So that's a big part of that. Josh Grisard's a big part of that. And I'm sure there will be a lot more changes coming forward. I mean, I'm kind of surprised the special teams coach currently still has a job, but that's kind of wild when you think about it. But we got Josh Grisard and Thad Lewis gone before him. But regardless, a lot of changes and a lot of changes on the offense, or no defensive changes or special teams changes just yet. But I'm sure we'll get those in the coming days.
And I think too that with you're starting to see these firings happen with Grisard and Thad Lewis. It kind of puts away the notion that perhaps Todd Bowles' job is still in jeopardy. I feel like with these firings, Todd Bowles is gonna be your head coach. I know there was rumors, people kind of speculating on hey, the Glazers could still potentially let Todd Bowles go, but with these moves now being made by the front office, I think this completely solidifies Todd Bowles will be your head coach in 2026, just to go ahead and get that out of the way.
Yeah, no, it certainly leans that for sure. Now, if the Bucs don't hit an offensive coordinator here, and there's going to be some that we're going to talk about here that are certainly realistic for them, but let's say they don't want to come to Tampa. Let's say they don't feel like that's a good idea for them, move their family and everything down here to Tampa or over here, wherever that might be in the country, and you're talking about a guy that is on the hot seat more than ever and could potentially be his last season. There's pros and cons to it. Let's say, all right, you want to take that job and be like, all right, well, I can be potentially the next head coach of the Bucs. Now, I know a lot of the Bucs fans felt like that could have been last year with Liam Cohen. That would have been nice one to have. But, you're taking another risk. You're taking a risk by coming down and being an offensive coordinator. Now, what excites you is, Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving, potentially Mike Evans coming back, Emeka Egbuka, former first-round pick. Like, there's a lot of pieces across that offense that excites you in that offensive line when it's fully healthy. Absolutely. When you've got an all-pro at left tackle and you've got a really stud tackle on the other side with Luke Gedeke, there's a lot to like for sure. But, that's the thing. Like, if Todd isn't able to attract and bring someone in, things could turn sideways for Bowles. And so that's something just to monitor and see what happens here. But there are some candidates. Let's talk about some for the Bucs.
Why
start
don't
off with
we?
number one. We got to start off with number one, right? We got to start off with what everybody's talking about. That's not going to happen in 2026. That's not going to be
He's
the guy.
back. He's back.
Josh Grisard is back. How about Mike McDaniel? How about Mike McDaniel? Boom. There we go. Mike McDaniel, you guys can go check this out at BucsGameday.com. River put out a great article earlier this morning for you guys. Phenomenal. Great stuff there. Some good insight on ones that are actually realistic for you and pros and cons of them as well. But let's start off with Mike McDaniel. So this just broke today. And
while I was writing that article, actually.
Literally. That was perfect timing.
I had to replace somebody. So
yep,
I hit you with the assist on that one.
Wait, so who'd you replace him with? Who'd you have?
I mentioned Brian Dable as a potential guy.
You know what's funny? I had him in our thumbnail originally.
So
next to each other.
Now, obviously, and then that's still a realistic option, guys. There's going to be a lot of realistic options with this Bucs team, but when a guy like McDaniel becomes available, we can talk about him right now.
Absolutely,
definitely got to go after it. I think undisputably one of the foremost minds in the NFL offensively, the best run game schemer in the league, I think, no question. And his pass game schemes have often been very creative, a lot of fantastic at-snap motion, a lot of movement. He's at the forefront of the offensive sort of meta in the NFL, and he comes from the Kyle Shanahan tree. And Shanahan's always been a guy that's done the same thing over there in San Francisco. So that's definitely a huge benefit. If you could get him to come here and be your OC in Tampa, he would do a lot of great stuff with that two-headed monster, Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker and the run game. He's used Gordon and Achane there in Miami pretty interchangeably like that.
Yeah.
A lot of really creative stuff to do with Chris Godwin and Emeka Egbuka, helping them find space because they struggle against man coverage. That's your guy right there. Mm-hmm. Some cons. His offense is very complicated, perhaps some people say needlessly complicated. This Bucs team has gone with a McVay-style offense and terminology the last 3 years. This is going to be a Shanahan different thing entirely. You're going to have to learn new terms, new words, new sort of play styles. Being from the Shanahan tree, McDaniel is going to be in your ear the entire time when you're at the line, making your reads, whether or not Baker Mayfield likes that. It's going to be up to him. And, it's going to be controversial, but I'm going to say it because I think it's something to note. Baker Mayfield had a pretty bad back half of the year this year, and he just comes from Miami where there's been bad quarterback play with Tua, and he would have to look at that situation and be confident that Mayfield could turn that around, because otherwise that wouldn't be very attractive. So he also, obviously, head coach, probably going to get a lot of head coaching interviews. You're going to pry him away from a head coaching job. I think he's going to get a few. Yeah, he might be a coordinator. We'll see, but that's another thing to consider as well.
This is from a question on YouTube asking, doesn't McDaniel have a reputation for soft practices?
I don't know. I don't know. that would be not good though. No. They had a joint practice. They had a joint practice in Tampa.
We did see that, yeah.
We
More
did
than
see
two
that.
soft was highly
I
competitive.
don't. That was pretty competitive. Yeah, it's joint practice.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that either. But much of what River said, it would be exciting. Mike McDaniel would be good. You think about the Buccaneers offense already. They have a lot of smart guys in that room. I don't think it would be a problem for these guys making a switch, having to learn new terminology and things of that nature, especially if they have a full offseason and being able to do so. So I think it would be solid hire. I think there's a lot of the same things that we want out of an offense and what we need out of this offense.
Right.
And Baker mentioned Tua and his collapse there with Mike McDaniel in Miami. You also got to realize that Tua and Baker also have a really good relationship themselves. They're friends, and so that is something you got to take into account. Baker's going to be doing his homework. He's going to be reaching out to Tua,
Right.
trying to figure out those things like, hey, what was your working relationship like? So on and so forth. And is this somebody that we got to look at? Because Baker's going to have a big hand in who this next hire is going to be. So something to think about there as well.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, that's the thing. Going to McDaniel's led the number 6 offense in 2023, number 1. And 2024, like this is a successful offense. Now Tua dealt with a lot of injuries too, which
Right.
concussions was something that really impacted the play of this offense.
And to his
last
point,
year too,
to his point, every player that's come to Miami from a different place has improved in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to note as well.
Mm-hmm. And I just want the run game back, man. If you're a Bucs fan, you want the run game back because you feel strongly
this is
about
your
the
man.
talent.
This is your man.
This is the guy, and he's able to run two running backs, and now moving forward, it seems like Rachaad White. Is he on the jet yet to Washington, or is he already?
He's probably already on the jet to Washington, I would imagine. Yeah,
he posted the GIF or GIF on Monday that he was like off the tarmac. He's flying off, so he's had to have made it by now up there. I mean, he's got to be roomed in now with Jaden Daniels. They're hip to hip by now, I'd imagine. So Sean Tucker and, of course, Bucky Irving, this is something that if you're talking about Mike Daniel, what he's thinking, if we're going on his side of things mentally, that's got to be attractive. I mean, that's the thing.
For sure.
The offense and the pieces are very attractive to you. Now, to me, and a deeper discussion on this is, let's say this is Todd Bowles' last year. Let's say the Glazers, okay, we're not seeing enough. Here we go again. We're going to see maybe a strong start. I don't know. This schedule is not going to be easy. But let's just say you get another 3-game, 4-game losing skid. Do they say, hey, we screwed up the first time and not having Liam Cohen promoted as the head coach? Should have done that. We learned from it. Mike McDaniel is my future there as the head coach. Or is Mike McDaniel just specifically good for moving forward as an offensive coordinator? What are y'all's thoughts on that situation?
You want me to take that one first? I'll take that one first. Again, this is a very uncommon situation where a coach will get fired to promote somebody else. The Bucs did it with Dirk Cutter and Lovie Smith, and that didn't go well. So the Glazers are the precedent for that. And they don't really fire coaches in season. The Glazers, they don't do that. So I think Todd Bowles is definitely coaching 2026. That being said, Mike McDaniel has HC experience, right? He had a bit of a bad break with Tua Tagovailoa, and he even made the best of him there, I think. So that's something to consider too. Yeah, I mean, if you can land Mike McDaniel, that's definitely a possibility. If he's in the building. So definitely something to think about. But again, gonna be hard to land Mike McDaniel, given that any offensive coordinator is going to think about, Todd Bowles could be a sitting duck. I don't want to be here just to get fired again. And B, McDaniel's going to probably get some head coaching looks, and he's going to take those interviews too. Also, he loves Dan Quinn, and Dan Quinn is the head coach of the Washington Commanders. So there's going to be some competition. But if you got the money and you got the time, you can interview anybody. So I'm sure they'll
like
put
making a
request.
splash.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Retweet there. You're good.
Yeah, the Glazers like making splashes, man. They really do. They like making some splashes, and maybe that is the splash they do intend on making. But you're right there, River. They have Jaden Daniels up there in Washington, which there's still a very high ceiling there. You could tell off of his rookie year, the freak accident that he had this season with his elbow and knee. Like, that was just some really bad luck for the Commanders this year, and things just felt off of Cliff Kingsbury their now former offensive coordinator, who was also looking for a new gig, potentially a head coaching job. So, but still, McDaniel is a hot name. It's going to be the hottest name from anybody. I mean, we were already talking about it almost, I felt like, before the season even began, man. Before they even got to training camp, there was just some chatter that maybe the team was lost. McDaniel didn't have these guys ready to roll. And sure enough, it looked like that to begin the season. Then kind of had some bright spots and whatever. And Tyreek Hill going out for the rest of the season certainly hurt them and put them in a rough spot. But yeah, I mean, you know, it was shocking news today. You know, they said that, you know, he was coming back, but now, nope, not happening. McDaniel's gone. So we'll see if the Bucs go there. Let's keep moving, though. Another big name that a lot of people are bringing up is Todd Monkin, River, and this was on your list as well of guys that could be your potential new offensive coordinator. Some ties there. What stands out to you the most? And then Caleb can give his thoughts on Monkin.
Well, Todd Monken's already been the offensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers first, 2016 to 2018, so that's kind of fun. If you remember, he would call plays, and then Dirk Cutter would just randomly take it back for no reason, and then the offense got worse. He then went to Georgia, unfortunately, in the SEC, and did good work there. And then he came to Baltimore in 2023, and he's the number one offense there in Baltimore. He's got Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry absolutely cooking. So that's definitely a big thing to think about when you want to hire him here. He's got experience. He'd be the first coordinator that they've hired in the last few years that has definitive play calling experience and has been in the league for a long time. He is 59, going to turn 60 this year, so he is an older coach, something to think about as well. And the final thing when it comes to Todd Monkin is that John Harbaugh got fired in Baltimore because reportedly he wouldn't get rid of Monkin, which leads me to believe that if John Harbaugh goes somewhere, then Monkin would simply follow him. But
yeah,
still definitely going to want to interview him and figure out where he's at in his opinions of the modern game and how it's gone. And he had a bit of a tough break in Baltimore this year. Offense kind of dropped off a little bit, but Lamar Jackson was on and off hurt. You had some problems there, and they still haven't had a definitive number one wide receiver in years over there in Baltimore. They do in Tampa Bay. So definitely an experienced product who has shown that he can cook with an offense. He's given that to you on tape. Got a really impressive resume, and if you want a guy that's you can just plug and play. He worked with Baker Mayfield already in Cleveland as well, so they have a relationship there too. A lot of things check out when it comes to Monkin.
There you go, River. River said it all. I mean, the big sticking point is obviously what ends up happening with Harbaugh. Whatever that decision is pretty much where Monkin will follow, in my honest opinion. Yeah. You have to wonder if his style of play and play calling is a little stale at this point.
Absolutely.
As you mentioned, River, with how the Ravens offense looked here. Then obviously you got to deal with injuries and stuff of that nature as well. But there's also the decision that was made to sit Derrick Henry for like a whole half about 2 or 3 games ago. I don't know if that lies on his shoulders or Harbaugh's or whose, but you can't just have that. That's not something you want out of this. You want to be able to rotate guys in and out as you see fit, and you don't take away the hot hand. And Henry was going off and having a great game before he was just that for the second half. So really interesting. I don't think the Buccaneers really want somebody to bring back into the fold that has already been here either. You're looking for fresh faces to join, this club and try and elevate the offense to a certain point. Does Monken necessarily check any of those boxes for you? I don't think so. And then obviously going back to the whole thing is probably the biggest sticking point when it comes to Monken potentially getting, the OC job here in Tampa.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up because we're going to talk about another one that's a younger coach that a lot of teams feel very highly on, and that is the pass game coordinator of the Rams, Nate Scheelhaase. He's one that's been with Sean McVay for the past 2 years. He's actually a guy that interviewed with the Bucs before, of course, the Bucs going with Josh Grisard, wanting to stay in-house and move forward there. But this is a name that you had on your list as well. He's never called plays, though. That's another risk that you would be taking again, but he's never called plays at the NFL level. But it could be someone that, as we were just saying, if you go somewhere has a younger coach, or even in my McDaniel still, who has, of course, now NFL head coaching experience. But if you're looking at moving on from Todd Bowles after 2026, then this would be a name that you would might be able to promote to do so.
That's right. Scheelhaase is the big name so far in this cycle. He already interviewed for this job with the Bucs last year. There's another candidate on my list that we'll go over who also did the same thing. But they've had him in-house. He apparently impressed, is what people say, a lot of reporters. But if he impressed that much, I don't know why he didn't get the job in the first place. But again, if we're looking at continuity here for Baker Mayfield, Scheelhaase would be a good option, because so far with Canales, Cohen, and then Grisard, you've had that Sean McVay style offense with similar terminology across all three stops. Scheelhaase would definitely give you that for a fourth stop. You wouldn't have to change too much. Some of the verbiage and wording would be different, but the offense would be very similar, and then he could just plug and play that way with his own sort of play calling philosophy that you would hope would be better than Grisard's. When to call certain plays, scripted drives, the flow of the game, stuff like that. So big name, 35 years old. He's been under Sean McVay, and definitely going to be a wanted man, a tough guy to get, and we'll see if the Bucs can interview him and land him, but that's definitely a name to look out for.
If I had to put my money on it, this is who I would pick. I know it's very popular amongst a lot of teams that are going to have opening positions as well right now. But as River mentioned, being able to carry that over from the McVay system, already invested in the front office and should have probably gotten the job last year, but they wanted to give Grisard a shot. Young guy can come in. I know he hasn't called plays, but you see what the Rams are still doing there, no matter how much turnover they've had in their passing game department or, their OC department, and so on and so forth. So seems like a perfect match, honestly, and it's hard to go away from. If he's ready, come to Tampa, beautiful, no state income tax. We've got, hella weapons for you to have at your disposal, and you can do whatever you want. And like, this is free reign. Todd's not going to be mixed into your decision-making process. Hopefully that's not the case. I feel like Todd kind of meddled particularly a bit here with Grisard and the conservative play calling. But if you can prove, like Liam did, that like you've got this thing completely under control. And back to River, you mentioned being able to, call plays when it's the timely manner to do so, right? Being able to know when you're mixing things up, when to exactly call plays. That's something that Grisard was not very good at, that Liam was just absolutely fantastic at, probably the best in the league at being able to call plays that's going to be able to have a huge mismatch, number one, but it's going to be at the perfect time of the game, no matter against a defense that they're not going to be able to do anything against. If he can show that, then, keys to the ship, keys to the car, whatever you call it, that's all you. I feel like Nate Scheelhaase is definitely that type of guy and can be able to do so. He gets on to his players. He's very hard on his players, and you love to see that in a coach. And if I were to put, my betting dollar on it, I would say that he would be the next guy in Tampa for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, too, being a passing game coordinator, he'd be very attracted to what they'd have in that wide receiver room. I'll tell you that, including Bucky Irving. I mean, he's a nasty threat out of the backfield. But right now, the Rams, of course, Puka Nacua is Puka Nacua. I mean, this guy is almost averaging 100 yards.
The best wide receiver in the NFL. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So you have that. That is highly attractive to you. And they've got Devontae Adams, which is always a one-year situation, yada, 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 Tutu Atwell. But, like, here in Tampa, you do have Mike Evans, who I think all of us are in. This is going to depend on what offensive coordinator you bring in, which one excites him to come back for another year. But let's just say you have Mike Evans coming back, and you have guys like Chris Godwin, who's a veteran there. He's not the same Chris Godwin as you had in years past, but you still have Godwin there, and he's under contract for 2 more years. And then you've got also Jalen McMillan, who I mentioned earlier in the show, and then Tez Johnson and Emeka Egbuka. There's a lot of attractiveness from this offense that could lead you to where a guy like this, a younger coach, would maybe take that chance and say, hey, you know what? If I do a damn good job, just like how Liam Cohen did, maybe the Glazers will be like, you know what? It's time to flip it over. We're going offense. Thank you, Todd Bowles. Thanks for your time here, and it's time to move forward. So This brings up a good question here on YouTube asking, what proven play caller steps into this mess? Todd's defense will simply not change, and every lead you get, he will give up.
This is going to be something to consider. This is when it comes to defense. There's reports out there increase. I believe Jeremy Fowler had one today saying the Bucs might hire a defensive coordinator to call plays, and if that's the case, that would be a pretty big change there. You could guarantee that something about the defense would be different that would allow you to want to step into the role. But as far as passing defense goes, Todd Bowles has never been great with that, a bend don't break sort of thing. And then when the run defense that's been stellar starts to fade off like it did at the back half of the season, then it's bend and break and give up 7 points, and then you lose football games. So yeah, that's going to be something to consider if you're an offensive coordinator. And like you guys mentioned there in the comments, knowing that Bowles might be a sitting duck for 2026, another thing to consider if you think, oh, I'm just going to get fired after this. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, but the ability to be a first-time play caller and get your feet wet in a system with a lot of weapons might just overrule that sort of anxiety, I guess you could say. So, and it did for guys like Dave Canales and Liam Cohen, and it probably will for guys like Nate Scheelhaase or Grant Udinski or any of these young guys. So, yeah.
Yeah, and just building on top of that, when you're looking at the opposite side of the ball, especially proven play callers, you're thinking, McDaniels, the Cliff Kingsburys, the Brian Daybulls. Yeah, it might be a bit of a concern for them because they could be like, oh man, I'm out. They're probably the guys that are looking at this like, like this will be my shot to get back to, a head coach position.
Right.
If that is the case, that would be a great thing for them to be able to look at and take. Honestly, if you're a young signal caller that has never called plays, it's a great situation for you as well. It's a great situation if you're a proven one too. But there are things that are negative about this. Like you could be gone. But other than that, the positives outweigh the negatives, the pros outweigh the cons ultimately. And I think it's a very attractive job still. And I would, go to them that Buccaneers are going to get one of their top choices when it comes to who their OC is going to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Before we move on to the next candidates here, I wanted to bring this up to you guys, but appreciate everybody coming in here. We got almost 60, I think over 60 of you guys here on with us at YouTube. We've seen a lot of growth the last few weeks on this channel, so we deeply appreciate you guys just coming in here with the comments. Liking the video certainly helps us, but if you would like to, consider hitting the subscribe button, man. We're trying to come on here a lot more this off season. We tried to do a lot during training camp. We've been trying to produce a lot more videos, but live videos I know is what you guys really like, definitely with breaking news type things. And so you coming in here, interacting and hitting the subscribe button and seeing that growth there just allows us to put more effort into this, motivates us. It's been awesome to have the viewership climb and the subscribe. Hey, we just gained another subscriber. Look at that. Bang. Live. Appreciate, shout out to whoever that was that just subscribed. But we've just seen a lot of growth. I wanted to share that on here, and it's deeply, deeply appreciative of us. And the show doesn't stop, so we're going to keep going no matter what. But appreciate that. Real quick though, let's keep on moving on to the next one. More. What do we got, River? Which one do you want to go with first? I'll let you pick on what you would like to pick. Would you like to go to the Jags or would you like to go to the Falcons? Which one would be your pick?
Let's stay on. I think the Falcons one's going to get a lot of people mad. So why don't we stay with Udinski first, and then
okay, we can build some user retention for that.
Yeah,
some viewer retention. Go ahead.
Grant Udinski is a name you're probably hearing a lot on social media. If you are on social media, he is the offensive coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Granted, that means he doesn't call plays because he's under Liam Cohen. And the best part about that potential hire is that's Zach Robinson. Talking about Udinski. The other one.
Oh, whoa, my bad. There we go.
There he is.
This is the first time I've had so many dang images on this thing over here. I've got screens, I've got images, man. I'm trying to keep up. We'll get it down, I promise.
Hey, well, Udinski was under Kevin O'Connell, right? In Minnesota. So he's had a lot of experience under O'Connell, who came from the Rams under Sean McVay. We're keeping on with that sort of theme. And then now he's the offensive coordinator under Liam Cohen. So the biggest benefit here with Udinski is if you're able to land him, he'll be able to call plays for you in a similar manner, perhaps to Liam Cohen. And Cohen led a top 5 offense, perhaps one of the best offenses in Buccaneers history. So why would you not want to run that back with a guy who worked directly under him? The challenges that come with this is just like Scheelhaase hasn't called plays yet. He is 29 years old. He's very young. So that is something to keep in mind as well. Has not had the experience that other candidates had. And with how Liam Cohen's tenure in Tampa Bay ended, which to be fair, I don't really blame him necessarily for how that went down. But, Liam's going to be giving him advice kind of about what it would be like to coach under Todd Bowles in Tampa Bay and how the front office is going to be, maybe how they won't be so aggressive and yada, yada, yada. And there's also the chance that if they like Udinski a lot there and Udinski doesn't want to get another head coach or another coordinator job, they could just block the request. So that's another possibility too. Might be a hard name to get a hold of. The Bucs did interview him last year in 2024 before hiring Josh Grisard, so they have had him in the building before. Another big plus there, but might be tough to get a hold of him. So that would be another name to watch.
Can I ask you real quick before we get Caleb's thoughts on this? Who did the Bucs? What was the list the Bucs had last year?
Oh, it was. I haven't pulled it up. I don't have it pulled up, but it was a lot. It was Udinski. You had Scheelhaase in. You had Alex Van Pelt in, for sure. Grisard, obviously. Dan Pitcher, the OC for the Bengals, was interviewed. I think they offered the job to Pitcher and Van Pelt, and both said no, if I recall correctly. So those were two big candidates there. There was quite a few people. They interviewed
Nick Caley, the tight ends coach,
Gerard Johnson, right? Gerard Johnson they interviewed as well. So there's a lot, but
Marcus
a lot of young guys. Marcus Brady for sure. A lot of young guys there, right? But Udinski was one of them along with Scheelhaase. So young guys they've had in the building before. They've done their due diligence. That's the good thing about getting 5 subsequent offensive coordinators is that you've interviewed everybody already. So that's kind of helpful. But
absolutely. Go ahead, Caleb.
I would like to hire ultimately if they were to go after him. You want to know how involved he is in that offense, though. I think that's something you really gotta vet if you are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like, how involved is he in? Is he a pass game coordinator? What relationship with Trevor Lawrence? How has he, helped boost Trevor Lawrence's confidence? Can you get Baker Mayfield back to having that level of confidence like he had with Cohen when he was here? So there's a lot of question marks with him. Obviously, first-time play caller, that would be a huge thing. I don't think the Jags would necessarily block him from potentially coming to Tampa, for the reason that, he hasn't called plays and he probably won't as long as Liam Cohen is there, unless you see like an offense fall off drastically from Cohen, which is likely not going to happen anytime soon until, the game starts to change direction once again at some point later down the road. But I think it would be a good hire. I don't think it's necessarily your top 3 choices if I had to guess, but probably in your top 5, a great guy to go ahead and bring in and go ahead and get an interview in because he is a hot name and he should be picked up, relatively soon. I don't know if he's going to make a lateral move unless he is given that ability to fully call plays. But if he likes what his current situation in Jax, you can see him staying there. You can see them trying to build something that's, legit into a Super Bowl contender and not be a part of that and just make your level of interest even higher as you continue to move throughout your professional coaching career.
Mm-hmm. Now, the final one here that you have on your list, River, and this time it's the correct image. This is Zach Robinson, the former Falcons offensive coordinator. There's a lot of ties here across all levels, it feels like, specifically with Baker Mayfield, who worked previously with him in Los Angeles for a little bit. There are also familiarity with Sean McVay's system, of course. What kind of leads you into where this could be a possibility for the Bucs here at OC?
You mentioned him. We talked about continuity. If you want continuity for Baker Mayfield, this is probably your absolute best option in the market right now. Robinson was his quarterback's coach in 2022 that sit in the Rams. He runs a very similar sort of offense that the Bucs have ran the last few years. In fact, whenever you ask them about the Falcons, they go, "Oh, we know his system. He knows ours," that sort of thing. So definitely a lot of continuity there. This is going to be controversial because his offenses in Atlanta have never been amazing. And to be fair, perhaps a little bit stale, but he had to work with Kirk Cousins, who had a torn Achilles and couldn't really maneuver outside of the pocket very well. And then you had Michael Penix, who I think was a pretty limited passer during his time as a starter this year. So quarterback play has not done him any favors with the way that he's been able to run his offense. But that being said, still hasn't been able to cook perhaps as much as some people would want. So I could understand the hesitancy. But as long as you are looking for a guy who has called plays before, has experience, runs the system that Baker Mayfield likes to run, and has a personal connection with them, Robinson fits all four of those. So definitely going to be someone to watch. But how much stock they take in his Atlanta tenure will be a deciding factor.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, completely agree. You gotta love, the combination with the relationship with that, and then the experience coming along with it. Also, the fact that he is available right now because of the full, upheaval of the Atlanta Falcons coaching staff and what is going on there. He might be looking for somewhere else, especially with whoever they hire as their next head coach. You might not want to keep him, might want to bring in his own guy, so on and so forth. I mean, would be a solid fit. I don't know if it elevates you to a point that you're like super excited if you're a Buccaneers fan at all. Obviously, getting a guy from a rival is, intriguing. I'm sure Falcons fans felt the same way when they hired Raheem Morris after his collapse with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as their head coach. So it's just one of those options. I'm like, meh, it doesn't really move the needle for me one way or another. I'd like to go, outside the box a little bit more, go get one of these young guys. I know he's a proven play caller, but I personally would, rather go with one of the young guys in this scenario, and not necessarily Robinson, even though he is a good, solid OC. I just don't think he's the right fit for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now.
Mm-hmm. Now, to you guys, who would be your top three if you're going to lay them out? What would be your list right now as we speak, going 1 to 3? Where are we at?
Well,
and the chat. We need the chat too to put up.
We do.
Put the list together,
guys.
Put the list together.
Who do you want? We'll talk about
everybody
it.
involved, and to people watching afterward, put in the comments who would you rather have in your top
if it's
three?
possible, and I mean possible, I think they're definitely going to request the interview. I mean, McDaniel would be my number one pick for sure, being how forward thinking he is on the offensive mind, and being a really excellent scheme, particularly in the run game, which Todd Bowles values a lot. I think that's definitely going to be number one. I would probably go Scheelhaase 2, because I think he could offer a lot of unique perspective, being as how young he is, and with that same offense he runs with that Los Angeles Rams style thing that Baker Mayfield would appreciate. Perhaps he could keep some continuity while also offering something new to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So it's probably number 2. And number 3, I'll probably go Udinski. If that's a possibility. I think he's a young offensive mind who could use that first play calling experience. And I think the ceiling, I'm looking at the ceiling could be sky high for a guy like him. And knowing how well Liam Cohen ran this offense, and knowing that Liam Cohen knew exactly how to play Baker Mayfield and use these exact same weapons, if he were to take this job, I'm sure he would get advice on that front. That would be a pretty big boon for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I'll go with him at number 3.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm going to switch 1 and 2. I'm going to go Scheelhaase 1.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of 1A, 1B here. I'm going to go with Gunn here. I just really like continuing, that McVay thing. I had arguments in the past in separate articles, specifically about a guy like Cliff Kingsbury and why it might be good to get some new, fresh, offense here. And so that leads me to number 2, Mike McDaniel. Same thing. You would be getting a fresh new offense in, a little bit more juice, as Logan likes to say, into that offensive system and see what we got cooking there. And then number 3, I'm going to go outside of any of the guys that we've mentioned on the show, particularly, or that Rivers had in his article. And I'm going to go Cliff Kingsbury. I think be an A+ hire as well, as long as that relationship and him and Baker are able to figure out that they're, a little bit better than on good terms. Getting some fresh in here, getting some fresh new offense into this system is not a bad thing at all. And then to round out the top 5, I'd probably, either go with Dayball or Usyk as well. So that's your kind of the top 5 that you would look at. I don't know how realistic Dayball is right now, because he's probably wanting a head coaching job. But a lot of these guys might be. You're talking about McDaniel and Kingsbury, probably both looking at head coaching job opportunities as well. But that would be my top 5 if I were to have like the top 5 guys that I want the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to hire. That are those guys that you want to go after. Everybody else might be a solid hire, but these are the ones that kind of move the needle for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of questions in here about Dayball. There was a lot of tweets about him. As we knew that these changes were going to happen at the offensive coordinator position, but Brian Daboll is one that could still be out there. We'll see, and maybe we'll do a dive into that in our next episode, as some of these things we'll start to figure out pretty quickly. The NFL moves quick; it's highly competitive. Definitely, whenever you have all these open head coaching vacancies, once those get picked out, then it really starts happening latter half of boom, bang, bang, bang. These guys start picking up their positions very, very quickly. These owners, these GMs want to get this going as quickly as possible, because then you can start really mapping out what you need to do on the off season, free agency. You've got guys retained that you want to retain. You've got contracts. You've also got your own free agents. You've got so much stuff happening. The NFL draft, like there's so much prep, and it happens very, very quickly. These playoffs will fly by like no other. So there's a lot. Now there's a question here from Marcel asking, does Baker have any input?
Unquestionably.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no question about it.
Yeah, like he's going to want somebody that, can certainly help him bounce back from the season that he had last year. I mean, that's one thing that I'm sure that he's not happy about whatsoever. And hearing, all the love that he got earlier on in the season, the MVP chants and such, he was telling us to the media, like, I try to tune that out, but he can't lie and say that he wasn't, hearing all that kind of stuff. And that's what he said. And, he was enjoying it. It was great. But he's certainly got to bounce back and have a better season overall. But you could tell, Josh Grisard, that just wasn't gonna work. And you could kind of tell that in the middle part of the season. You just kind of found your ceiling, and defensive coordinators were able to read out what Josh Grisard was bringing on Sundays.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you think about it too, Baker probably had to sign off on, letting Grizz go with the firing as well. I don't think that's a move that they would not have, discussed without any of his input there. So obviously, if he has input with that, have input on the new guy coming in as well.
There's a question here about Mick Lombardi. I believe he is the 49ers quarterbacks coach.
He is. That's another candidate to bring up as well. He's gotten a little bit of chatter there. One of the more under the radar candidates, but if you want a Shanahan thing, and I am not opposed to a Shanahan thing, because Shanahan's offenses are very great. You look at Clint Kubiak right now in Seattle, running the Shanahan tree, doing fantastic. Would be a good thing to change it up in Tampa Bay. That would be a name to watch.
Now, Clint Kubiak wouldn't, be one of these candidates just because we're all expecting him to be a head coach elsewhere.
Right.
Is that what we're all expecting?
Okay. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, and as I mentioned,
the Bucs,
before,
I think the Bucs interviewed Kubiak last year, if I recall correctly. So that's another guy they had in the building. Yeah.
They brought in,
and I've said it on one of our past shows recently that Kubiak is probably your Ben Johnson in the head coaching carousel this year.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, he's like your top candidate now. Ben Johnson, different animal. Like Ben Johnson is Ben Johnson, and what he's been able to do with Chicago is absolutely insane. How quickly, I didn't expect for that to happen so quickly. Different kind of attitudes as well. And that's one thing that I'm keeping on. Like I said, I want some fire, I want some juice, because you don't have any juice or fire from Todd Bowles at all. So that's why I thought Liam Cohen and that mix worked out very well on this staff. And I just got to find someone with some energy, and hopefully that is the case. And sure, that matches to what Baker is. Baker is a lot of juice and a lot of energy, and that's one thing that you certainly love about him, and highly competitive. But he's going to want an offensive coordinator, and he will have a lot to say and how that goes down. Real quick, though, we got to give some love here. Just broke a little bit ago, but Tom Moore, longtime legendary NFL coach, after 46 seasons? Is this correct? 46 seasons in the NFL.
He has been on a coaching staff with Terry Bradshaw, Peyton Manning, and Tom Brady, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool.
It is really cool. And you joined the Bucs in 2019 as a senior offensive consultant under Bruce Arians, of course, bringing a lot of knowledge, decades of knowledge into Tampa. And then, of course, his mentorship, his veteran leadership. Specifically, I go, man, this is going to be tough for Bucky Irving. I immediately thought about Bucky Irving because those two created such a strong bond immediately once Bucky Irving came into Tampa. He was telling us about Tom Moore. We're like, wow, that's really interesting seeing this early young buck come in, and then him and Moore, they would compete to get into one buck, into training, into the training facility, all that kind of stuff. Like those two
like
would
4 a.m.
Yeah, like literally 4 a.m. Whoever got there won. But then they would also spend time, I believe, after Bucky would get done with his workouts or before he was getting his workouts in, those two would spend a couple of hours together just, shooting it up, man, just hanging out, chatting, and they built a strong relationship. The first game that Bucky Irving came back from injury, I took a video of Tom Moore and them spending a special moment together, and Tom Moore, tapping him on the helmet and saying a few things to him, and just a strong relationship there. And not saying that relationship is going to go anywhere, just kind of, it's tough that, Moore won't be in that building. I know he's got some personal things too that he's dealing with his family. So wishing him the best of luck there, but a really well-respected man that, luckily we got to spend some time with throughout the last couple of years covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Y'all's thoughts on, Moore, announcing his retirement?
Man, what a legend. There is a famous quote from him that you can look up because we can't.
Oh, no, you could say effing.
Okay. Sure. So he was once asked, I believe by John Gruden, why the Colts didn't do backup reps when Peyton Manning was there. And he said, because if 18 goes down, we're effing or effed, and we don't practice effed, right? So very famous quote from him. Very applicable probably in the modern NFL game too, but legend. Been with so many, just to be able to pick his brain, being around so many legends and quarterbacks and offenses in the NFL, it's fantastic to see him have coached for so long. And let me tell you, I'm sure just to be able to sit down with him, I'd love to have like a huge conversation about him. Rick Stroud wrote an excellent book on Tom Moore that you guys should go read. Partnered with him to just outline his story, and he's got a lot of great stuff in there. So definitely go check that out.
Yeah, exactly what River said. A GOAT in the game for a very, very long time, multiple connections. Just overall, what a guy to add to, the football world, and what knowledge that he's been able to provide just generations and generations of players throughout the years is just amazing. And thank him enough, just not only as, covering the Buccaneers and being able to have him here in our organization, but just as a football fan in general, somebody who enjoys the game, somebody who likes to watch the ins and outs and understand certain amount of things. And Tom just completely exemplified what you want in a coach, somebody, that is hard on his player, that is a create a genuine connection, like Logan mentioned with Bucky Irving, like two totally separate worlds that both of these guys come from, and they're able to create a relationship like that. Is just that type of guy. He can kind of create a relationship with anybody, and just wishing him the best of luck, praying for him and his family, whatever else he has going on. But he's going to have some better days ahead of him, take some beach days, get out there and be in Tampa and enjoy the weather, and just wishing him the best of luck in his retirement, man. And great book, by the way, that Rick Stroud and he put together. Really, really good stuff in there if you guys haven't checked it out.
Well, that's going to do it for us. We appreciate everybody hanging out with us this afternoon. Appreciate everybody that subscribed while we were on here live. I think we gained almost 5 new subscribers. If you want to be our 5th, definitely feel free to. But we appreciate everybody coming in here, smacking the like button as well. This just helps it go out to more Bucs fans to get you guys in here asking questions, engaging with us, and it helps the show go longer as well, as we're almost close to an hour, where usually these are only 30 minutes. But you guys interacting with us allows for us to just have some more topics, some things that we're not even thinking of or have on the docket. They're great questions, and there's some things that we're going to dive deeper on later in the week. Who knows? There might be a breakout show this weekend. Who knows? But that's why I always suggest you guys hitting that subscribe button and then hitting the bell next to it, because it does give you a notification right here on your phone, literally. And sometimes there's breaking news, just like the Josh Grisard stuff a little bit ago.
Yeah.
And we'll see what else happens moving forward with this coaching staff. But a lot of candidates that we went through on this episode, 5 realistic ones. But we'll be sure to give you guys any kind of updates at BucsGameday.com, including here on this YouTube channel. And we appreciate y'all hanging out with us this afternoon. Y'all enjoy. If we don't see you, enjoy the rest of this week. And we'll talk to you hopefully not too long away here on Hear the Cannons. We're out of here. Peace.
All right.